We've been treating Russia as an enemy since I was born and even before that.
Who do you think started the conflict between Russia and Ukraine?
What do I think started the conflict between
Yeah.
Russia and Ukraine? But like you basically are pushing them into a corner.
NATO fundamentally is a military agreement that says if any country tries to threaten the sovereignty of one of the countries involved, they will all band together and stop that country from doing that. So the only reason that Russia would see NATO as a threat is if they are actively trying to go into other countries and invade them.
I don't think there's any justification on either side to kill people.
I'd say there's justification from Ukraine because their land is being invaded, and so they want to defend their
Yeah,
sovereignty.
The American people can't stand up and respect the president like years ago when a president was elected and people didn't necessarily vote for them.
All right, here we go.
They
Let's
didn't
see.
go around trashing them. They just accepted what was going on and they moved on with
That's
it.
insane.
That's-
I will say I think that this president is worth disrespecting considering he is a Russian asset, though.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
that's
with that,
dumb.
you pack your bags.
That's it. Dude, these people are Russian asset, so though. triggered. I voted for Trump because he's funny and made my sister cry. Okay. Oh my God. What's going on, brother?
All right, cool. Yo, all right. First of all, big fan. I do love your content.
Thank you. I appreciate
All right.
that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I watch anytime I can. So yeah, no, thank you for pulling me.
Thank you.
All right, so I was in the Marine Corps for the last 5 years, so my opinions have changed a lot drastically when it comes to looking at politics, going back and forth. So one of the biggest reasons I ended up voting for Trump, all right, is because I think that the left does a very good job when it comes to relating to people in terms of how they feel. They're able to be more human, more emotional, which I think is an important thing. I think, though, the rhetoric that has been pushed, though, has gone past the point where it's now more of, oh, now it's my turn to be on top with many different things when it comes to minority groups, when it comes to gender ideologies or gender roles. And I don't think that's a very healthy thing to push. That's one of the first reasons. And the second reason is because, just looking at it from a militaristic standpoint, when I was in the military, I don't think it, especially with Ukraine, us getting involved in that is as, how do I say this? Not that it's not important to defend people, but at this point, with everything that we've gone through in the past 20 years when it comes to the military, I don't really think it is our job anymore to be like, all right, just because we're the biggest kid on the block means that we have to stop every other kid from doing something that's wrong. Because at the end of the day, more people are going to die, and I think there's better solutions than just, either sending more money, all right, or supplies to continue something that's either just going to continue going on or that could be ended way quicker, which it seems like right now it's ending just because he's kind of swinging his cock.
Which one do you want to start with? Do you want to start with like more of the Democrat rhetoric, or do you want to start with the conversation about Ukraine?
I'd rather start with the Democrat rhetoric.
All right, okay.
That's all right.
Let's start there. All right. So give me specifically what you feel like your issue is when it comes to. You said it has something to do with you feel like things are being pushed, right?
Yeah.
Give me like a specific rundown, really quick, of what you mean by that.
Okay, all right. So like recently, the DNC had their new what's it called? Like votings for like the vice president of the DNC, president of the DNC. Maybe a couple months ago. Was it last month? I can't remember what it was. But watching it and seeing clips from it, it basically turned into a mass of this. Every candidate would get up there and be like, "Vote for me because." I'm the first guy who's Hispanic and transgender to be up here, or vote for me because I'm a black woman. Like that's quite literally what they were running on. And it's like, I also see like, what's that kid's name? He was in the Coral Springs shooting. He became like a really big gun activist. Oh, what's his
David
name?
Hogg? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I see that fucking ass. So like my cousin went to high school with David Hogg. She was there.
Okay.
He wasn't even there. And this prick's going to get up there and say, now we're taking back, the America. And it's like, I see that stuff and I'm like, you're not providing any substance. And then anytime a voting did happen, all right, they would change the rules up so that a minority within the voting could still get a chance to be voted. I.e. like, okay, so we have 5 men who got voted, all right, but no women got voted. Oh, we're going to drop a man so the next highest woman can get put up in the vote and we'll redo a vote to see what happens. As if to
Are you talking about in the
levy it.
DNC? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and
I've never
that's
heard
ridiculous.
of that before. Was that true? Did you watch it? Is that absolutely true? Should I take your word for that one?
Okay, I'm not a liar. All right?
I'm not saying you're a
At least I
liar.
try not
I'm
to
not
be,
saying
you
you're a
know?
liar.
Oh yeah, no.
But
Okay.
maybe
There's
someone's misinformed. I don't know. I didn't watch it. I never heard of that before.
Oh yeah, man, you have to check it out. There's many different content creators that done,
Yeah.
reviews of it.
Sure.
I don't know if you heard of Warren Smith. I mean, he did one. He did a whole video breakdown of it.
Okay.
I definitely recommend. Maybe you'll have some good insight to Warren Smith.
I'll take a look at it. So it sounds like
definitely.
Fundamentally, you're having an issue with identity politics, right? That's your problem.
Oh,
and you feel like they're kind of cringe.
It's a problem. Oh, at most, I feel like you and I are just two people having a conversation, but it seems like, it's gotten to the point where, and I feel like the left really presses on this really hard. It's like, for me, I believe marijuana should be legal. Like, I don't give a fuck if people do. This is just an example I'm using.
Sure.
Anybody should be able to use it if they want, above the age of 18. And it seems like, well, you believe in that one thing that we've been pushing for, years. That means you're one of us now. And it's like, no, it doesn't, because I still believe in, like, let's say, I believe, people should be able to, and again, this is just for the argument, should be able to own whatever gun they want. Right? It's like, oh, well, you believe in that? Oh, well, you're a terrible person for thinking that. And it's like, well, we share common things and we disagree upon some things. Why do I have to either be one way or the other?
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like in general you have a frustration with some form of identity politics, and some kind of groupthink. Okay, I mean, I can understand that to an extent. I think that 2020 was very culturally different. TikTok brought a lot of people online, a lot of people that I think meant well, that maybe took some social issues and pushed them a little too far. And the content strategy, or the strategy in general, the political strategy, became very focused around those outraged identity politics. Because I do think that there are marginalized groups, but I do think that we kind of went from a perspective of acknowledgement to a perspective of almost victimizing people based on identity, regardless of the background, which might have been perfectly fine and they have no reason to identify as things. So I can generally agree with that. I don't know what you mean by minority groups being pushed. Sometimes when I hear that, I hear people talking about how we're putting gay people in each other's faces. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, or you're just having a general expression about how you're frustrated with constantly feeling like you're focusing too much on identity.
It's more of like this. All right. I'm white. Probably could tell that from my profile pic.
Okay.
The amount of times that I've been told in my life, especially, I would not think in the service, but I have, that I need to feel bad for being white, or been told you've had such a level above life in life because you're white, and I've never had anything handed to me in life. At all. That it gets to the point where it's like, it really doesn't seem like you want things to be fair anymore, referring to the left. It just seems like whoever you are, if you're not white, then that means you just want your place on top now. Like, it's not about equality anymore. It's about, you just want to be the big guy with the big stick on the block now, because white people were for so long in history. Okay. Which that doesn't seem right to me.
Can I ask you, have you heard this in person, or is this something that you hear a lot online?
Like this argument, or this mentality?
Yeah, this argument that it's like, it's our time to shine from other marginalized groups.
Oh, no, this is something I've definitely come across myself, and it's not until recently when I started looking into more social media where I've seen people share the same feelings.
So a lot of it sounds like a lot of it's online, and maybe that's bled into some people talking about this in real life. Is that a fair assertion?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Because I think that there are a lot of people that are online that maybe mean well, but then there's also people online who are looking for a reason to be violent. And they will weaponize any perspective to be violent. So they'll grab onto good movements like feminism or male advocacy, which are very good movements because there are issues with both men and women, but they will use it to speak negatively of the other group. So instead of working on building their group up, it's more of performative agreement with a particular group to be able to hate on another group. That's their justifier. And so I see a lot of that, mostly out of young people. So I can understand that being frustrating. For me, I'm like almost 35, so I don't really let that get to me, because I know a lot of people online are kids. The anonymity of people online sometimes make people feel like those are grown adults with like a perspective to care about and respect. I don't respect people who weaponize advocation movements to hate, so I don't really let that bother me too much, but I can understand the frustration where that comes from. I do understand where that frustration definitely comes from, so I can agree with you to some extent on that. Ukraine though, you don't feel that we should help Ukraine defend their sovereignty from a foreign invader?
I really at first I was totally gung ho.
Okay.
Like when this whole thing took off, my gunny comes down, he goes, "Well, boys, looks like we're gonna be drinking, vodka in Moscow pretty soon." And he's making jokes that we're going there. And at first I was super gung ho, but then I started to think about it, and it just seemed like this was caused more and more by the Biden administration with the simple actions that they were doing. And I don't think Zelensky's a bad person. I want to make that clear in this whole thing. I think that he was a pawn to be used to push the military industrial complex, all right, for war. Because a lot of military companies profit off of this.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in America when we give aid. The majority of the aid goes to military companies. Exactly. For sure. I agree with that. When former Vice President Harris goes over there and says, we want you in NATO. And one thing that's been like a big no-no, since the time of Bill Clinton was Ukraine will not be part of NATO. I think she was asking for trouble to happen. Well, just to be clear, there's no like official ruling that Ukraine could never be part of NATO. There was no official agreement ever that they couldn't join NATO. But I understand that would feel threatening to Russia, and we'll talk about that in a second. Just to be clear, though, this started in 2014. So this really isn't like a Biden started it kind of a thing. Russia, I believe it was 2014 when they annexed Crimea.
Yeah, that's when
Kiev.
Or Crimea, that's it.
That was 2014. So it started then. It started on Obama. But I guess I'd have to ask you, because I understand that like the military industrial complex will make a lot of money. Who do you think started the conflict in the first place? Because I think it starts there with our conversation.
Like with the most recent war happening?
Well, who do you think started the conflict? Who do you think started the conflict between Russia and Ukraine?
Who do I think started the conflict between Russia and Ukraine? I mean, if we're going to be going that back far in history, I would definitely think it'd be probably like Stalin, with
well, I meant more of like 2014, like who started it there? Because I think if we could start with who is to blame, that gives us a lot of answers of like who started it and who's trying to keep it going. Because from my perspective, Russia started it. They have broken 25 ceasefires in the past decade. They occupy 20% of Ukraine. They control all of Crimea. They are the aggressors in every capacity. They don't have free elections. He's been in office for 25 years. They assassinate political opponents. And for me, that's pretty clear cut that the aggressor is Russia. And so that's kind of where I start. And so this idea of NATO joining is very irrelevant to me.
Yeah. I think that the fires get stoked when they did that, I guess is my point.
What do you mean?
As in, we had almost 10 years, it could have been, of not having that happen again. And I think certain elements happened under their policy and what they were trying to do that basically stoked Putin to be like, I'm going to do it again. And then he does it 10 times worse.
So what do you think that they did to stoke it? Are you specifically referring to NATO?
I'm specifically referring to when Harris went, we want you to join NATO, and that's something we know Russia doesn't want to happen, and we know that's going to piss them off, and we do it anyway. Because obviously Putin sees NATO as a threat to him and his country.
Why? Why do you think he sees that as a threat?
Well, I mean, we've been treating Russia as an enemy for, since I was born and even before that, you know what I mean? Like I talked to my parents, and that's all it's ever been seen as.
Well, they're a foreign threat that's antithetical to our. Like I said before, they assassinate political opponents, and it's effectively a dictatorship. So I could see why we treat them as a threat, because they are a threat to our civilization.
Oh, I know, but when you keep pushing this our border and our control up towards them, this isn't me trying to sympathize for them or be apologetic to them, but like you basically are pushing them into a corner. And you know that they're going to push
why
back.
Would it push them into a corner? Because NATO fundamentally is a military agreement that says if any country tries to threaten the sovereignty of one of the countries involved, they will all band together and stop that country from doing that. So the only reason that Russia would see NATO as a threat is if they are actively trying to go into other countries and invade them, and they just don't want anybody to help the country that they're invading. So that doesn't really make too much sense to me.
I think the biggest threat to it is Russia has always seen us as an enemy because we've always seen Russia as an enemy, and the U.S. pretty much is we're pretty much NATO itself. So when when that border is pushed, it just means we're closer to them.
Sure.
And I don't know the ins and outs between the Russia and U.S. relations. The in depth. I don't know what happens behind the doors, but it just seems like when Trump is now in office, there's more happening in terms of dialogue between both sides than there was with Biden. And I think that's like a big thing that's really pushed me more to saying Trump is better.
So I couldn't find anything about Harris saying anything about NATO or Ukraine joining NATO. I did see the former president of Ukraine say in I believe it was 2002, saying that they wanted to join NATO, but I can't find anything about Harris saying that. Hold on a second. Actually, I might have found something that you're right. I just want to get where this is coming from. It does look like Harris may have said something about NATO. Let's see. I think from what I'm seeing is that Kamala Harris basically said that she would support Ukraine in general. I don't think that she ever necessarily said that they're going to. She said they'd be setting. She basically just said that she would do it with what Biden would do as well. I don't think there was ever an open invitation to NATO, but still, fundamentally, I don't.
I'll redact that. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that. If it's again, sorry, because I got a little distracted with that. I understand what you're saying because it seems like there's progress to be made, and every other president seems to be very anti-Russia. But my thing is that now that we're laxing on Russia right now, do you think it's reasonable to think that if we lax on Ukraine, we don't provide them resources? Do you think that's something that might empower Russia to continuously push through Ukraine, which again is 20% occupied by Russia? Do you think that's why maybe our former presidents have been so strong, because Russia can't be bargained with? They will continuously throw bodies at war to try to imperialize other land. Do you think that's reasonable to say?
I think it. So this is where we get into the intentions of people. I don't really know what the intentions of Putin is, but.
Do you think that he has?
I will say this.
Do you think he has a justifier for trying to go into Ukraine in the first place?
I don't think there's any justification on either side to kill people. At the end of the day, I mean, you're still taking human life. But I would say there's
justification. I'd say there's justification from Ukraine because their land is being invaded, and so they want to defend their sovereignty. But I don't think there's any justification.
I do recognize.
Yeah.
I recognize different, go ahead.
No, sorry. I understand what you're saying. I think we can make reasonable assumptions about the motivation of Russia, considering there is zero threat to their agency or autonomy as a country at all, and they decide to go into another land. And so it also is very strange that a country would be very afraid of NATO, but then they would actively provoke NATO. It seems very bizarre to me that it really seems like they're not afraid of NATO. It's like saying you're afraid of dogs and then throwing rocks at dogs, saying, I'm so afraid of you. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So it does seem like Russia definitely is the aggressor, and they can't be bargained with because a lot of those people are dying. Ukraine is standing pretty well against them, and I think that if we pull out, we're just going to empower Russia to feel like they can push in.
That might be the case, but at the same time, it really seems like. Despite everything that we've been doing to invade Ukraine, I don't think Russia's shown all their cards in this war.
What does that mean?
Like, what I mean by that is without the U.S. being there, I have no doubt in my mind that Russia would overtake the country. But at the same time, with the support that we've been giving to Ukraine, the average age of their soldiers is like 43. I mean, they're quite literally taking men off the streets if they're not in the country. They're quite literally asking other countries to bring them back. So, I don't think Ukraine, regardless of the support that we have or give them, is at all ever actually winning this war. What I think right now Russia is doing is probably just dragging it out as long as possible to weaken them more and more and more till either Zelensky fully bends the knee to Russia, or until, we have someone like Trump going to, the table and saying, all right, this needs to end now, or this is going to get bigger.
Right. So what the two propositions are, they're going to continuously push until they can beat Ukraine, or until somebody goes soft on them and allows them to continuously push into take over, because they occupy 20% of Ukraine. I think that
I'm not saying go soft. I'm saying
that is because part of it is either going to have to give up some land. Trump has said that specifically. So the what you're saying is that the Ukraine's either going to have to continuously dwindle their soldiers down in an endless war, or they're going to have to give up some of their sovereignty against a foreign threat that they want to defend against. Mm-hmm. I think that, to me, if Ukrainian people want to continuously fight for their sovereignty, we should give them money without any loan, completely unchecked, because they're doing us a favor by preventing a World War III from starting, because they're the first line of defense.
I mean, they're obviously not preventing it; they're losing the war.
They are preventing it, though. We haven't. This has been going on for over a decade, and we haven't seen any. We're really nowhere closer to World War III. I think the closest thing that's going to bring us to World War III is if we pull out, and Russia feels empowered enough to push through Europe. That will start World War III. They are definitely the first line of defense. They're doing pretty well, all things considered. They're losing about 100 soldiers a day, which is definitely rough. But they're managing. They're doing very well. Their society is still moving forward. They're still able to live decently. They are a war-torn country, but they still have civilization. I think that we should continuously give them money. No loan. Give them money. They're doing us a service by making it so that we don't have to fight them.
Do you think that Russia, if they wanted to, could push in further and harder than they are right now?
I think if they did that, then that would provoke a response from the United States. And that's why they haven't done that yet.
But do you think they could? My question is, if they wanted to push in so much harder and take over the rest of the country, with how the war is going, us just sending support, no other troops are helping Ukraine, it's just Ukrainian soldiers, do you think Russia could do it?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I can answer that question. I'm not sure if they could push through there. I would imagine they probably could, maybe, but they're afraid of being too disproportionate, or else they're going to have boots on the ground from America. I'm not sure, though. But again, they do occupy a fifth of the country, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're putting boots on the ground regardless.
Sure.
I wouldn't really think that's going to happen. I think, going back to negotiations, I mean, yeah, Putin has gotten to the point where no matter what happens right now, he's going to win. And I think that's going to happen. I don't think that's true. Because, I mean, he's going to get what he wants.
Why do you? But I think the only way he would get what he wants is if we roll over and we show great weakness.
Listen. All the land that he's preoccupied,
mm-hmm.
the damage that he's done. In the end, if we're going to end the war now, it ends. They're making concise. All right, Ukraine won't do this. Russia gets to keep their land. Russia's the winner at the end of the day.
Yeah, but why would we concede that to them then?
The thing is though is that unless we're willing to let more people die, all right, which at this point. It cannot go on because more people don't deserve to die for this. And it's a shitty thing to say, but it's the truth. Either more people die, all right, on this war, both sides.
Yeah.
So Ukraine can get back the land that they lost, and we possibly put end to Putin, but I don't think that would happen regardless. Because I think if we get involved, it's just going to be the end of everything. Or Ukraine gives up what they've lost, and the war ends, let's say, tomorrow.
But you think that Russia is going to say, okay, we got 20% of your country, we're done here, we're good, we're not going to continuously push forward?
Maybe not, within the next 5 years. Maybe in the next 10 years they'll do that. But at least right now, people will stop dying.
But here's the thing. But
if
Ukrainians...
the US really didn't want this to happen, we would have gotten involved harder.
If we push too far, then we will start World War III. That's why we give them supplies and we don't put boots on the ground. But it sounds like you're acknowledging that Russia will do this again. And so that seems like a weak response to let them roll over. And I understand people are dying. Ukrainians want to die to protect their country. That's all I need to know. Okay. I think that there's something to think about is that you probably live in the United States too, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, my TikTok line's being weird.
No, you're fine.
Sorry. You live in the United States as well. We have a pretty good life compared to a lot of other countries in the world. When we look at a country, phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely. I think when we look at, we have a different perspective on value of life here. Everybody's life, for the most part, in America is pretty valuable, generally speaking. other countries don't necessarily have that same value of life. I think Ukraine, being a war-torn country, has a different perspective of the value of life, and a lot of them would be willing to die to defend the sovereignty of their land. I think a lot of Americans would be willing to die to defend the sovereignty of their land as well. I think that's why we have robust gun laws, which I agree with generally, having access to guns to be able to potentially fight back against an oppressive government, which is what they're doing. And I think that like it's nice over here though to say like, oh well, we should have less death, but I don't think that that's the reality. These people want to defend their homeland. They want to die for their homeland, and we should give them the resources to do so, because Russia is a legitimate threat to all of our values that our ancestors have fought so hard for. And it's almost a slap in the face to our ancestors from World War I and World War II who died to just roll over on another foreign entity trying to invade on the autonomy of another country.
If it wasn't for certain events that happened towards the United States in both World War I and World War II, we wouldn't have even gotten involved in those things. So I don't think it's really like integral to the United States to be like, oh,
well, those people still joined and did die to protect their own freedom, and I don't think it's bad to try to prevent them. More people. My thing is, I think more people are going to die if we decide to roll over for Russia in the long run. Because
and I guess my point is then, unless we are fully willing to engage and put an end to Russia's tyranny, there's no point in like just continuing this out.
But that would start. That would be the World War, right? So we can't go that far. So the best we could do is to. No matter what, it ends. I think it ends in World War. No, I feel like what it seems like. I think, and maybe you can agree with this. No matter what, whether we keep supporting Ukraine or whether we stop, Russia's going to do what Russia's going to do, and it's going to lead to more war and more death. Really, at the end of the day. Yeah. So
if we keep supporting Ukraine, they're going to keep fighting, and if we pull back, they're just going to keep pushing, which will end up us being fighting. So I don't think that either way is going to.
Well, so now this is where it comes in. We have to make a hard decision, and it's like, in both instances, people are going to die. Which is the better one? The one that starts World War III, or the one that doesn't? And I would take the one that probably doesn't, or has a lower chance of doing that, and that is allowing Ukraine to defend their sovereignty by giving them as much money as they need, which so far has equaled out to be about $60 a year per American.
You know, I heard you say that.
Yeah.
And like maybe this is like fucked up to say, maybe, but it's like, you know, I could pay a year subscription for $60 to something else. You know what I mean? Or I could have my $60 go to Ukraine. And it's like I shouldn't have to be told, oh, my $60 has to go to Ukraine.
Sure, I understand that. Do you think that there's a value in helping other countries? Do you think because the reason that we go ahead.
What I'm going to say is because, and again, this might sound shallow, but like, unless that country, I'm very much for, like, this isn't to say I don't care about other countries. I've visited other countries. I got to experience cultures I never thought I would. I definitely have a value for other cultures and what they bring to the table. I think that's what makes U.S. so beautiful, is that we're a collection of those cultures. But unless that country is providing something to the U.S. in terms of an economic, militaristic, or even like a cultural sense to add to it, I don't really see why the U.S. should do anything for them if it's not an equal exchange of services. Because if we just keep giving, we're expected to do everything. It's like, how much of NATO do we make up in terms of like how much money we give? We're like, what, like 80 or 90%? We're like something insanely high.
I'm not sure.
Okay. If you could look that up, we make up a ton of the budget. And right now, the EU is going nuts to try to figure out what's going to happen if we start pulling back on that and how they're going to provide.
I know we disproportionately give more money to NATO. I'm not sure the percentage of that. But the thing is that we also have what we get for joining NATO and supporting our allies is we get more influence in the world, which gives us better trade deals. And it makes it more likely for foreign countries, especially if they're worried about other threats, to join into us, because they'll feel confident that we will defend them if they have a problem. And so, like, let's say there's some other country and we have a vested interest in them, and we start investing into them and we start allying with them, and they let us develop military bases. If they know that they'll get attacked if we do that, they'll feel more confident working with us because they know that we'll defend them, and it gives us more influence in the world. And so I see we get a return on everything that we do. I mean, we stimulate the economy by sending over different goods, so that's number one. And we have better world influence that allows us for better trade deals with other countries. So I think that generally speaking, we are getting a pretty solid return on our investment. I think that there's a lot of people who are frustrated financially because it sucks how much money people are paying every day, and they take it out on the government because we spend poorly. And there's probably are instances of that, but I think the biggest problem is the lack of affordability for houses and healthcare, which distract more from our wallets, and then it makes us more like, what's the problem? We haven't quite identified that class consciousness yet to be like, okay, the problem is we can't afford to live, and no politician is really doing too much to make it easier to live. That's what I would say. That's where the money frustration comes, and I think some of it's misguided.
Yeah, I know as of like 2024, and this will get to like the money. We have like almost 800,000 like homeless people in the U.S. Don't you feel like that all the money that we've sent to Ukraine could have been first used to, like, let's say, fix, the housing and urban development programs that are supposed to be helping fixing the homeless programs in the country,
No,
or at least
I don't think so.
focusing on Americans first?
No, I don't think that would change anything. So we've been actively giving them money for quite a long time. I don't think that the money that we give to other countries has much to do with our adjusting our budget, to be honest with you. Again, I think that it gives us positive trade relations in other countries. I think that we have outrageous spending, and the biggest problem though that we've had is the incorrect collecting of taxes, specifically because we are in a technological revolution that has caused AI and technology to displace jobs and drive down wages. I guarantee you probably go to the grocery store and there are 8 self-checkouts, which means that there's one guy manning them. That's a ton of jobs. Factories are being automated heavily. You really can't go somewhere where automation isn't taking over. People are using telephone services that are doing like AI picking up, or not AI, but like recorded messages picking up. These are all the loss of jobs. Even GPS technology has reduced the amount of money that truck drivers have to get paid because it makes the job more accessible. And so I think that we have a very difficult time trying to figure out what we have not quite pinpointed the issue in America with the middle and lower class dwindling and having less money is the fact that there is technology destroying us. And so we are just kind of flailing around trying to figure out what it is. And one of those things we do is say like, oh, I think it's the spending we do in other countries. I don't think that's what it is. I think we have tremendous amounts of wealth centralized at the top, because they're the ones that are able to take advantage of all these technologies, and they have kind of convinced us that we should hate Ukraine for trying to defend their sovereignty instead of them for them not paying fair share in taxes.
Okay. Do you think how would you feel about like a universal basic income? Because
I'm a very big advocate for UBI. Huge.
Okay, yeah. I don't know how I feel about it, but I will say this: with how much money that we give to other countries, which like the other day, whether you believe Trump and some of the stuff that he was saying. All right, that Doge found, okay?
Yeah, well, a lot of that's been retracted, just to be clear. A lot of like the top 5 have been retracted because they're struggling to actually give us, meaningful receipts for what they're doing. Okay.
But that money, that could go to something like this. But instead, it's going to, turning mice into, transgenders, which...
Well, that's not true. That's just definitely, just to be clear, it's transgenic mice. So that's injecting them with human cells so that you can test cancer. So it's cancer funding.
I'm just fucking around.
Okay.
No.
Fair enough.
Believe me, I knew about the transgenic mice like 5 fucking years ago, and then it's being brought up now, and I'm like, wasn't this a thing we've been doing for like ever?
Yeah, it's basically cancer research. There's a little bit of an irony of pulling on that young man who suffered with cancer, while to praise him while also cutting cancer research is a little, I would say, frustrating and tokenizing of that young man.
I think going back to the leftist thing, I don't mean to like hold you up, but like I think that's a good thing to like look at, like, regardless of how you feel, like, with the young cancer patient, I think it's kind of ridiculous that, and like this is what I mean by like, and the right is guilty of this too, but it's just like a mindset of a hive mind. Like why couldn't a single Democrat just get up and applaud the little boy? He's a little boy. He's 13 years old.
Yeah, so
even he got shocked. You could see, damn, like he didn't know that was going to happen to him.
I understand that. I think we all kind of knew. The unfortunate reality is, and there might be a level of truth to it. The idea is to not give him any props, because their thought is going to be he's a fundamentally bad person, Trump. And so it'd be almost like humanizing, and I'm going to be exaggeratory here. It'd almost be like humanizing Hitler. It's like, oh, well, yeah, Hitler did kill 10 million people, but, he had a nice haircut. And so that's kind of the idea, is like, don't give him anything because he doesn't deserve an optic win. That's going to be their... Okay. And again, like the Republicans did the same thing to Biden. It's like, unfortunately, it's the game. It's like the optics game that they play. So they won't give him any praises for anything. So
I think Trump did say that though during his speech. Though, it's like, I could cure the world's worst disease and they'll still won't clap for me.
That
which I think
might be true, but
I
he
think does
also,
say a lot.
I would say, and we have to end our specific conversation, but I'm down for another time to
Yeah, of
have one.
course.
I would say that so
I would
far
love
I haven't seen an overall positive impact from Trump. So I don't think we'd ever be able to test that theory. So, but anyway,
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
I did appreciate the conversation. It was definitely very stimulating.
Yeah,
I do
I appreciate you.
it.
I like I said, I love your content. I usually put it on in the mornings before classes. So
Thank you. I appreciate
it's
that.
great to be able to talk to you.
Hey,
of course,
thank
appreciate you.
Thank you for stopping by. Take care.
Yep. Thank you. You too.
Peace.